The morning of May 2nd, 2025, began with a silence so heavy it felt intentional. At 10 a.m., a 911 call from a remote property in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia, shattered that silence, launching what would become the most extensive RCMP investigation in the history of the region. But while the world's eyes were fixed on the main residence where Malehya and Daniel Martell lived, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police were looking somewhere else. Just 30 feet away sat a small, unassuming trailer, the home of Daniel's mother, Janie Mackenzie. Within days, the secondary structure was encased in yellow crime scene tape, transformed into a high-stakes forensic laboratory. For 48 grueling hours, specialized teams worked inside that trailer. They weren't just glancing around. They were dissecting the space. Neighbors watched as forensic specialists in white suits moved like ghosts behind the windows. Evidence boxes, sealed and numbered, were carried out one by one. Cameras flashed incessantly against the glass. The property was a fortress. No one entered, and no one left without a badge. The intensity of the search begged a haunting question. What could possibly be hidden in a grandmother's trailer that required 2 full days of forensic scrutiny? The RCMP doesn't deploy this level of manpower for a routine witness statement. They do it when they suspect the truth isn't being told. In a case where every second counts, why spend 48 of them inside a 400-square-foot trailer? The answer lies in the proximity. Janie Mackenzie wasn't just a relative. She was a witness who lived within earshot. Her bedroom window faced the main house. She was the eyes and ears of the property. Yet her account of that morning left gaps that physical evidence needed to fill. We are diving into the heart of the unsolved archive to analyze the forensic procedures that shifted the trajectory of this case. Because sometimes the most chilling clues aren't found at the scene of the crime. They're found in the places people went afterward. To understand the importance of the trailer, you have to understand the layout of the Glock Road compound. This wasn't a standard suburban neighborhood. It was an isolated pocket of land where lives were lived in close, overlapping circles. The main house and Janie's trailer were separated by a mere 30 to 40 feet, a distance easily covered in 10 seconds. From her bedroom, Janie could hear the rhythm of the household. On the morning of May 2nd, she claimed to have heard voices, then an unsettling silence, followed by the sound of her son Daniel calling out names. But hearing is subjective, proving is forensic. This proximity meant that Janie Mackenzie was more than a bystander. She was a human recording device. If a door slammed, she heard it. If a car started, she saw it. Shortly after the silence, she emerged to find Malehya in the driveway with her 1-year-old daughter, claiming it had been 20 minutes since anyone had seen Lily and Jack. That 20-minute window is the dead zone of the investigation. It is the gap where the story of a missing child begins. Investigators immediately realized that if the timeline provided by the family was inconsistent, the evidence of those lies would likely be tucked away in the trailer. If someone had run to the trailer in a panic, if a phone call had been made in secret, or if an item had been moved from the main house to the trailer to hide it, the forensic team would find it. The RCMP wasn't just searching for Lily and Jack. They were searching for the integrity of the story they were being told. In a high-stakes investigation, the first thing police look for is a crack in the foundation of the witness's memory. They knew that if Janie's account was the only thing they had to go on, they had to be absolutely certain her trailer didn't hold a different version of the truth. When the RCMP enters a scene for a 48-hour lockdown, they follow a grid protocol. They don't just look under the bed, they document the molecular state of the room. The first priority was timeline evidence. In 2025, our lives are dictated by digital breadcrumbs. Investigators seized every electronic device in Janie's home. Phones, tablets, and computers. They weren't just looking for texts. They were looking for metadata. When was the phone last picked up? Was the sleep mode deactivated at the exact time Janie claimed to be awake? Digital logs don't have the bias of human memory. The second priority was communication. In the minutes following the disappearance of Lily and Jack, who talked to whom? If Daniel and his mother were only 30 feet apart, did they call each other? Did they text? Forensic software can recover deleted messages and trace the location of a phone down to a few meters. If a device moved between the house and the trailer during those missing 20 minutes, The GPS data would reveal a betrayal of the official story. Then came the physical search. In a space that small, a 48-hour search suggests a level of detail that includes luminol testing. This chemical glows blue in the presence of hemoglobin, revealing bloodstains that have been scrubbed away with bleach. They looked for transfer evidence, microscopic fibers from the children's clothing or soil samples from the surrounding woods that might have been tracked onto the trailer's carpet. They were looking for the children's presence in places where they shouldn't have been that morning. Every surface was dusted for fingerprints, every drain was checked for biological matter, and every trash can was emptied and categorized. This wasn't a search. It was an autopsy of a living space. The goal was simple: support the witness's story or destroy it. By the end of day one, the evidence boxes were piling up, and the investigation was beginning to pivot. One of the most intriguing aspects of the trailer search involves the acoustic verification of Janie's statement. She claimed she heard voices and then silence. To verify this, the RCMP likely utilized forensic acoustics. This involves testing how sound travels between the two structures under the specific weather conditions of May 2nd. If a witness claims they heard a whisper from 40 feet away through two sets of walls, the physics must align. If the physics don't match, the witness statement becomes a liability. But the investigators had a more modern tool at their disposal: the Internet of Things, IoT. In modern investigations, the most valuable witnesses are often smart home devices. Smart speakers, security cameras with microphones, and even smart appliances can inadvertently record snippets of audio or log trigger events. If a device in Janie's trailer captured the audio that morning, the RCMP would have a timestamp recording of the voices she mentioned. They could identify the tone, the urgency, and most importantly, the exact time the silence began. The 48-hour duration also allowed for DNA swabbing of high-contact areas. In a trailer where the children often visited, finding their DNA is expected. However, forensic teams look for anomalous DNA, biological traces in places they don't belong, such as inside a ventilation duct or under a floorboard. They were also looking for signs of staged environments. To a trained eye, a room that is too clean is just as suspicious as a room that is a mess. If Janie's trailer had been deep cleaned in the hours following the 911 call, it would signal a desperate attempt to hide something. The specialists were looking for the one thing every criminal or panicked witness forgets: the microscopic truth. As the 48th hour approached, the forensic teams had enough data to begin a new phase of questioning, one that Janie Mackenzie might not have been prepared for. After the yellow tape finally came down and the boxes were transported to the lab, the investigation didn't go quiet. It went underground. The RCMP began a series of follow-up interviews with Janie Mackenzie. In major cases, these re-interviews are designed to catch contradictions. Armed with the digital logs and physical evidence from the trailer, investigators could now ask Janie specific, pointed questions. You said you were in your bedroom at 9:45, but your phone logged activity in the kitchen. Can you explain that? This is where the psychological weight of the investigation begins to take its toll. In July 2025, Janie spoke to the CBC, describing her life as being turned upside down. She expressed frustration, claiming she had nothing to do with the incident and wanted answers. This is a common theme in high-profile cases. The witness suspect limbo to the public. The 48-hour search of her home looked like suspicion. To the RCMP, it was a necessary elimination of variables. But for Janie, it was the loss of her sanctuary. While the lab worked on the textiles and electronics, the RCMP was also analyzing the pink blanket pieces found elsewhere on the property. They needed to know if fibers from that blanket were present in Janie's trailer. If the blanket had been in the trailer after the children went missing, it would link her directly to the physical evidence of the disappearance. The investigation was now a race between the laboratory results and the family's narrative. As the months dragged on into October, the intensity didn't fade. It expanded. Cadaver dogs were brought back to sweep the property again. The RCMP was building a comprehensive baseline. They were ensuring that if this case ever reached a courtroom, no defense attorney could claim they hadn't looked everywhere. The trailer was no longer just a home. It was a permanent part of a criminal file. As we enter the second year of this investigation, the trailer on Glock Road stands as a symbol of the unseen side of forensic work. The public often focuses on the main crime scene, but the trailer reminds us that the periphery is where the truth usually hides. The RCMP has kept the contents of those evidence boxes under a strict seal of confidentiality. They haven't disclosed what was on Janie's phone or what was found under the trailer's floorboards. This silence is strategic. In an active investigation, the only people who should know what the evidence looks like are the investigators and the person who put it there. The 48-hour search was a massive investment of resources. It tells us that the RCMP believed the key to the entire case might have been 30 feet away from where the children were last seen. It suggests that they were investigating collusion or accessory after fact just as much as they were investigating the disappearance itself. Every fiber, every digital log, and every photo taken inside that trailer is a piece of a puzzle that is still being assembled. The story of the Lansdowne Station investigation is still being written. New tips are still being vetted, and evolving forensic techniques, like advanced DNA phenotyping or more granular digital recovery, are being applied to the items seized that day. The truth of what happened to Lily and Jack may not be found in a confession. It may be found in the microscopic residue of a grandmother's trailer. The RCMP remains committed to the idea that no stone should be left unturned and no structure left unexamined, because in the end, every detail tells a story, if you know how to read it. The question remains, when the final chapter of this investigation is written, will the evidence from those 48 hours be the key that finally unlocks the truth? The Unsolved Archive will continue to monitor the evidence. Make sure you're subscribed for our next deep dive into the forensic files.